Audible?
Ram sir, little louder. And one more thing, you can start recording also.
Yeah.
Okay. So little louder, sir. Little
Yeah.
louder, sir.
Yeah, thank you.
That's
So
all.
CCC strives to encourage responsible consulting through members of its association, and focus is to standardize consulting practices in alignment with the changing markets and the industry needs in a dynamic manner. The focus is also to identify areas and industries in which the consultants in the profession of management systems consulting can contribute to the betterment of the society and the country, and to promote management system consulting in such areas and industries. So one of the core objectives of CCC is to collaborate with various industry platforms, trade associations, chambers of commerce, management associations, apex bodies of government or quasi-government organizations to contribute to the betterment of the industry initiatives, which will in turn contribute to the betterment of the society. Next one. About WAD 2020, that is World Accreditation Day, is a global initiative established by ILAC and IAF. This year's theme is how accreditation improves food safety. Accreditation has an important role in food safety by ensuring competent and impartial inspection, certification, and testing services in all parts of local, national, and international food chains. In doing so, accreditation supports the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs, in particular the Good Health and Well-being Goal, SDG 3. Accreditation can be applied to a wide variety of assessment, approval, or evaluation tasks, and is used by business, government, and regulators to help deliver a safer world. Now I request Alok Jainji, who is with us. He is the director of TCB of QCI. I'll now request our Alokji to explain about TCB.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is Alok Jain, Director and Head of Training and Capacity Building of Quality Council of India. As just mentioned, June 9 is marked as World Accreditation Day. This is a global initiative by International Laboratory Accreditation Corporation, ILAC, and International Accreditation Forum, IAF. This year, WAD 2020 theme focuses on how accreditation improves food safety and supporting the confidence of consumers, suppliers, purchasers, and regulators. Let me congratulate the efforts made by Consultant Consortium of Consultant to celebrate WAD 2020 in a very, very unique way by having a series of webinars on various topics related to improving food safety. I thank the consortium to give me an opportunity to introduce a new division of Quality Council of India. So as you know, Quality Council of India is having various boards, NABCB, NABL, NABH, NABET, and NBQP. Their role is to give the accreditation, like once we talk about NABCB, role is to give the accreditation to certification bodies and inspection bodies. NABL is for the laboratories, and NABH is for the healthcare providers and hospitals. Can you please click on the second slide? Okay, yeah, please go ahead. So this is a new division called Training and Capacity Building Division, which is created under Quality Council of India. Yes, please. And the key, I mean, it's established 2 months back, but we are targeting our domain into quality management system, food safety, manufacturing, food processing, laboratories, inspection certifications, healthcare, education, information technology, environment, and project management. Yes, please. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you, Alok ji.
Thank you.
Now I request today's webinar's presenter, Srimati Krishna Datta, to carry on the session and introduce the topic to all the participants, and also the co-presenter of today's webinar. Over to Krishna Datta, madam. Madam, you have to unmute your mic.
Mrs. Krishna, please unmute your mic and speak.
Others can mute your.
Hello, am I audible now?
Yes,
Yes, madam. Yes, madam. Please go ahead.
No, but then the screen sharing has stopped. Okay. Is this fine now? Hello?
Yes, madam. It is fine. It is
Okay.
fine.
So good evening, everybody, and thank you very much for giving this opportunity to present this series of food safety related topics. In fact, it's a privilege, the entire food safety team here working in India, all the consultants, we really feel thankful to CCC that you took such a beautiful initiative of having this webinar series for over a month, wherein we can actually share knowledge, and the main focus of this entire webinar series is to share knowledge. So thank you for giving this opportunity. Thank you everyone who is participating in this. Today is the first session, and in this session we are beginning with something very basic that actually addresses the food safety parameter, and that is the sources of contamination. Now, this contamination, all of us know, we have heard about it, but as we go through the session today, you will know a little more about them. So our topic is the major sources of contamination in our food, and this contamination is caused by contaminants, which are further classified as physical hazards, chemical hazards, biological hazards, and allergens. So in today's session, we will be talking about the physical hazards, chemical hazards, biological hazards, and their sources. And tomorrow we have a session on allergens. So my request to all of you is that please make yourself available also to attend the session tomorrow. That will almost be like a continuation to today's session. And
Sorry to interrupt. You can introduce yourself, madam.
Sure.
Thank you, madam. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So coming back to my introduction. Okay, my name is Krishna Datta, and by qualification, I did my post-graduation in microbiology, and then went on to work in the areas of food safety. So I was working with a number of certification bodies for more than about 15 years. And then for the last 5 years, I'm concentrating on manufacturing frozen foods, and also doing consulting and trainings in food safety management systems. So my specialty essentially is in food safety and FSMS LA courses. So that's about me. I would request Mr. Appaji Rao also to introduce himself. He's my co-presenter and moderator today for the session. Sir, can you please introduce?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Good evening, everyone. My name is Appaji Rao. I'm basically a dairy technologist. I passed out from National Dairy Research Institute in 1983, then went on to work with a dairy cooperative as well as private. In cooperative, I worked for 12 years, and in private, I worked for 3 years. That's where I changed my gear, because HACCP was becoming important in those days. That is way back in 95, 96, 97, 98. So during that course while developing, I got fascinated to these management systems and food safety, changed my role. I became a trainer, auditor, and consultant. I'm a qualified auditor in all these three, qualified for QMS, EMS, OSAS, food safety, BRC. And I'm an NRPL with NBQP, for FSSAI, for training into for milk and milk products. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. So when we talk about contaminants, we should also know what are adulterants. So a contaminant is something that gets unintentionally added into our product. So it is unintentional addition of any substandard material, which was not initially intended to be a part of our product. But then we were not aware and it has got added. So that is what we call as a contaminant. And an adulterant is where it is intentionally added so that you can make the material cheaper, or you can increase the volume, or you may increase, or you may try to bring certain parameters of the product within limits or permissible limits. So we hear a lot of these terminologies now, but today we'll focus on contaminants essentially, and adulterants, since it's an intentional addition, especially the food business owner definitely knows if at all it has got an impact on food safety at all or not. So considering that contaminants are something that come into our value chain unintentionally, we'll try and address them first today. Next, we come to hazards. Now, when we talk about contamination and contaminant, we should also know what a hazard is. So hazard is any agent or an action that has an ability to cause an injury or an illness to human beings. Now here we also need to remember that there are certain elements which may not be hazardous initially, but if they are not used in the right way, they may turn hazardous. An analogy to this is a very simple one. For example, when you're playing cricket, somebody is bowling at you, the ball is actually not a hazard. But if the ball does not come in the right way to you and hits you somewhere, you may be injured. So that is not the intent. So please get that a hazard is something which is an agent or an action which has an ability to cause an injury or the illness to human beings. Now, when we talk about a hazard, also we need to understand whether it has got a potential to affect us or have an impact on our health. So for that, we define a terminology called risk. So the risk is a scientific evaluation of known or potential adverse health effects resulting from human exposure to the foodborne hazards. Now here I have specifically used the term foodborne hazards because we are talking about food safety. Now risk is a terminology which is actually used for any other exposure to hazard as well. It could be an occupational health safety hazard or any other hazard. So the risk has a scientific calculation. So there is a degree to which a hazard can cause an impact on you and the exposure time. That defines the term risk. Also, I would like to tell all of you that if at all you all think that you want me to say something again or you want me to go slow, please let me know about it. So there is a relationship between contamination and hazard as well. So the hazard is that contaminant which has the potential to cause illness or injury. So when we talk about a contaminant, not all contaminants may actually have the ability to cause an illness or injury. So only those contaminants which have the ability to cause a illness or injury are termed as hazards. Now I've given a very simple example which you all can relate to. Say for example, you make a gravy and when you're actually pouring it in a vessel, there was some water in that vessel. Okay, some plain water. So of course the water has contaminated the gravy to some extent because you had not added that water, but it will not have any impact on your body because that's plain water or water which you usually use. Maybe it is filtered water too. Now, in other case, if the gravy gets contaminated with some wash water or sewage water, then it may definitely pose a risk and it may also cause some physical distress. So in this case, that water has become a hazard for you. Are you all with me when I'm speaking? Somebody can just respond.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Go a little slow, Krishna.
Sure, I'll go a little.
Yeah, thanks.
Slow. Sure. Okay, so far so good. You want me to repeat anything?
No, ma'am, just go ahead.
Okay, thank you. So, right in the beginning, I said that we are categorizing the contaminants as hazards, and they are into three different categories. So the first category is the physical hazard, and all the hazards that I have placed here on the slide, they are known to every one of us. So there are pins, nails, metal pieces, jewelry, stones, mud, pest droppings, rodent hair. If you're ordering a boneless dish in a restaurant and you find a bone in it, it becomes a hazard. Now, there is a reason why we call that a hazard there. For example, if you are going with a perception that you will be eating a boneless product and there is a sudden bone fragment, you are not prepared for it. And when you're not prepared for it, it has every potential to cause harm to you and it could actually choke you. Maybe as an adult, you will take some action and you may remove the bone fragment and still keep eating. But consider the same thing happening with a child. The child may not be able to tell you that there is something that's hurting him and the child could actually get choked. So that's where we call it a hazard. Now, when actually you're eating a bone-in dish, there definitely a bone fragment will not pose a hazard because there you are in the awareness that the dish may contain a bone. Now, all the other elements that I've placed here, they could actually find an entry into the food chain by some action, or they may come with the raw material. So we will actually look at their source in the coming slides.
Madam, you have to unmute your mic again.
Am I audible now? Hello?
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes, yes,
okay.
madam. You are audible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So this is just a visual representation in which we have included a few more things. And maybe one or two of you who are actually in this presentation, you can also interact. Now when we are talking about the sources of contamination, if I pick up something like, say, button, from where can it enter into the food chain?
Workwear, prawns.
From the workwear, from aprons?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, a matchstick?
Matchstick, like if somebody has allowed smoking habits inside the factory premises, then or some workers from the workers itself.
Right. Stones?
Product characteristics.
From?
From the product itself or ingredients.
From the product itself or ingredients. So when we see all this, they are all hazards because they have the ability to cause some kind of illness or an injury to our physical health. Let's.
Ma'am,
Okay. Yeah.
in the previous slide, you have mentioned like paste droppings.
Yeah.
That could be again considered as because some paste droppings considered salmonella.
Correct.
Will it be like considered as physical, or again it will be a biological hazard?
See, many of them, they are actually, here we have considered them as physical because they are visible to you also.
Yeah, visible. Yeah.
Right? Now, when you allow this pest droppings or the rodent hair to be in the product, that is where the microbial hazard will grow.
Yeah.
Okay. If
Okay.
you can see this and get it removed from the system, then definitely it will not find place further.
Okay, ma'am.
Yeah? Okay.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Yes,
Anybody?
ma'am.
Yeah. Yeah, please.
Can you let us know the difference between the hazard and risk again? Actually,
Okay.
the 50% I got it, but like I need some clarification. Like,
Sure.
if you can.
Yeah. So the hazard is something which has an ability to cause an illness or an injury to human health. Okay? The risk is the extent of that impact that it will have on human health depending on the exposure time and the degree to which the hazard can actually impact you. Like how strong is it? Like for example, let us pick up one example from here. Okay, consider you have a broken glass. Okay, I'm communicating with you. You can also interact with me. Okay. Hello.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So consider you have a broken glass in the product. Okay. So how hazardous is it?
Can like choke, or you can injure your.
Yeah, it can actually cause an injury if somebody actually consumes it inadvertently.
Yeah.
So it can cause cuts, right? Right. And if you have, hello, and if you have consumed it, then obviously the exposure has already happened,
Yes, ma'am.
right? So now there is an exposure plus
One minute,
when that,
madam.
yeah.
Madam, some participants, please, when you are
Mr.
not-
Chandrasekhar, can you do? Yes, thank you, Chandrasekhar.
when people are not participating actively, you can put it your audio and video on mute. Video strictly mute only. Audio, when you are interacting with the presenter and the co-presenter, you can unmute and talk and again go back to the mute mode. Thank you. Thank you.
Host can mute, sir. If it's not happening, we request the host also to mute, sir.
I'm doing it, madam. I'm doing
Thank
it.
you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So now that the exposure has happened, and this broken glass has the ability to cause a cut or a bruise or an injury, so the risk is very high. Can you see that now? Hello?
Hello.
Yeah.
Yeah, it means that glass particle was the hazard. Okay.
Yes.
But that effect.
Yeah.
That effect was the risk. Like
No.
how much risky it was.
Correct.
Have
The
that
risk.
hazard.
Yeah, the risk is an estimation actually. You know, the risk is an estimation to the intensity of the hazard to cause an injury and the exposure time.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay. So,
Yes, ma'am.
so am I clear about this?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, can we go ahead?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, thanks.
Madam, shall I say 2 words here?
Yeah, sure, please.
For the benefit of everyone, anything which is going to cause you physically, harm to you physically, are the physical hazards. It can be choke, it can be cut, it can be pierce, it can be anything. If it is not into these 3 segments of choking, piercing and cutting and blocking your digestive tract, then it is not a physical hazard. In such case, what is not shown in this figure is insects. Internationally, even insects are considered as physical, because if the size of the insect is large, along with the food when you take it, it will choke your throat. So that is also a physical hazard. Are we clear on this point?
Yeah, thank you so much. This is a very interesting one. Insects definitely actually can cause a hazard. Thank you. Okay, can we go ahead? Hello?
Yes, madam, you can go.
Yeah. Yeah. So are we clear about the physical hazards and what they can actually do to us?
Yes, madam.
Yeah. So next, let's look at the chemical hazards. Now, in this chemical hazards also, we have put up a number of things like paints, varnishes, or pesticide, insecticide residues, cleaning agents, detergents, printing inks, colors and dyes, even permissible additives and preservatives which are allowed in the food. If they are used beyond the prescribed limit, then they become hazardous. Then heavy metals and residual drugs. Now, I just have a small question to all of you. Can you just identify what could be the source of any one of them, maybe pesticides and insecticides? From where could it come into our food?
Raw material, I think so.
Fruits and vegetables.
Okay, yeah. rather than raw material, if we are more specific from where it can actually come, see the fruits and vegetables,
On-site pest treatments.
On-site pest control management.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, that could be a point. Yes. So, for example, your residual drugs.
MRL, maximum residual limits.
Yeah, from where could it find place into our food?
Veterinary products might be, and milk and milk products.
Milk, from milk products, meat, any
Yes.
of these, where animals are being used as a food.
Yes.
So residual drugs do play a big role there. So they are usually, we cannot see them, but they may find place in our food. Also, to a great extent, can you give any one example how human beings can contribute to chemical hazards in food?
Yeah, nowadays COVID-19 is there.
Yeah.
Now we are cleaning the food like vegetables and all with some chemicals. Means some people are doing that. So in that condition, it will contribute to some kind of like detergent in the food.
Regarding employees.
No, I'm asking a human being. How can a human being
maintenance-
contribute to
Maintenance
chemical
department,
hazard?
Due to maintenance department, they are handling non-food grade lubricant.
Oils and greases.
Yes, that can contaminate through.
Okay.
department.
Can I ask a small question?
Use
Sure.
of excessive kind of things, madam?
Yeah, that I've already said. Permissible additives and preservatives. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
How about consider any of your employee has an injury and has got some already applied and is in the assembly line or packaging. Will he or she contribute to hazard?
Chemical, maybe some drugs, medicines he has taken care, carried with.
Some ointment, like
Yes,
you have
ointment.
applied maybe some soframycin or Bernol,
But
something.
generally, considering the practice, that people are awarded to handle the product. and-
Correct. That's the control that we are
That's the
talking about.
control, yeah.
That's the control. But here I'm talking about from where it could come in.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So,
How about the nail enamel that most of the women wear?
could not get it.
The nail polish?
Yes, madam. Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
varnish,
Yes.
yes. Varnish.
Could it contribute to the chemical hazard?
Yeah.
Yeah. So can we see that, the hazards are actually around us?
Yeah.
It's from our activities. Okay. So this whole session or this whole series is actually intended to make every one of us aware, not only manufacturers, but also consumers aware that they too contribute to food safety hazards.
Just one question here, madam.
Sure. Yeah.
So will this applicable to even the homemade food also?
See, as long as you want to be careful.
Yeah, I mean, I'm asking about that nail polish part and all. I mean,
Correct.
okay.
Actually, that's what, we don't see that, but definitely the nail polish finds its way into the food.
Okay.
Even like leaching of mehndi, Meena,
Huh.
tattoos and all the things. That
Yeah.
So
So far we have not been able to figure out whether henna or tattoos definitely really find a way into the food or not, but nail enamels definitely find a way. We have found that because it tends to scrape off from the nails
so that's
over a
not
few
the,
days.
Yeah, so that's not the cool things to have basically.
Definitely. So we need to be more conscious, right?
Yeah. Sure. Thank you.
Okay. Can we move ahead?
Sure.
So next we look at our biological hazards.
Madam.
Now
One
this
second.
biological hazards.
One second.
Yeah.
One second.
Yeah.
I was going through the chat box also parallelly, so I found few interesting comments there from the other participants who didn't speak.
Okay.
For the chemical hazards, I will prefer to use them, represent it here for everyone.
Yeah.
We all understood about pesticides through water and all these things. And there are cosmetics, like
Yes.
not only nail paint, but even the perfumes used by certain people. One of the participants has given that as a perfume from human beings.
Yes.
That is one interesting point stated by the.
It could be creams as well, perfumes,
Yes.
creams,
From any
talcum powder.
Talcum powder, cosmetics.
Yeah, correct. Yes.
Cosmetics.
Yes.
So the Anurag Gupta was saying cosmetics, and Prema was explaining about perfumes, blood, and then fertilizers and other things are common which are already been stated.
Definitely, yes. Thank you so
We
much.
can move on. We can move ahead.
Thank you.
We need to uninstall everything now.
So next we come to our biological hazards, and biological hazards essentially, when we talk about microbes, they are actually omnipresent, but you cannot see them. And I guess with the current pandemic, everyone knows about viruses already. So some of the microbes that really find place into the food, and they have the potential to cause harm, are bacteria, viruses, parasites, molds, and yeasts. And when you talk about bacteria, some of the bacteria also have the ability to produce toxins. Any of you have heard about toxins? Okay. So, we all have a very interesting thought that if at all there is a microbial contaminant in the food, we all end up saying there is going to be a thermal processing in the end, because as Indians, most of us, we cook our food very well before we eat. We reheat them very well before we eat. But there's one interesting thing about toxins. There are many heat stable toxins.
Okay.
And they do not get denatured even after heating. So when we are actually talking about food, when we are talking about managing the entire food production in a controlled way, it is important that we also manage the biological hazards, because there is a possibility that they may proliferate and then they end up producing toxins in food, which if they are heat stable, then how much ever thermal treatment we give to it, it may not get denatured and still have the potential to cause an infection. So am I clear about toxins?
Yeah, ma'am. Like regarding mycotoxins and aflatoxins?
Yeah, they come through molds usually.
Molds, yes.
Yeah, they are usually through molds.
Yeah.
And especially, there are a number of crops. When they are grown together, then this aflatoxin actually comes through it. Yeah,
maize
exactly.
and all products, yeah.
Absolutely. So there are weeds growing there. So it will come through them, those molds, and they form aflatoxin. So that's why there is a very stringent limit for aflatoxin presence in the food, because it is actually a difficult toxin, right? And sometime back you also asked me about pest droppings being a biological hazard. So please understand that most of the living beings, including us, we actually carry a lot of microbes.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Right. So definitely. So some of the other living organisms which contribute to this biological hazards in food are insects, rodents, farm animals, pets, birds, fish, plants, and human beings. Okay.
Okay.
So we are all contributors. Like this session, definitely we all want to, get to the fact that everything around us is actually contributing some kind of a hazard into the food. And that's why we need to be mindful and controlling and be vigilant about getting them to not enter into our food chain.
Right.
Yeah. So these are some of the sources, like as we began in the beginning, like sources of contamination. So you can see that everything around us actually contributes. Like you can see this food contamination sources picture. The food handler himself is a contributor. The packaging material can be a contributor. All the animals, insects, rodents, your soil, sewage, environment, your raw material, everything is a contributor. Now, at this point, I would like to make a mention of something called as a cross-contamination. We have talked about contamination from these sources, but we have to be also responsible in managing this cross-contamination. The cross-contamination essentially happens when, you are actually dealing with too many things or too many processes. For example, you are actually processing raw materials along with finished products. That's where there could be a possibility of biological hazards moving from the raw material into the finished product, and you may be completely unaware about it. So that's the cross-contamination, and it could happen at every step. For example, a food handler who has just handled some raw material has now come into the kitchen and is now giving some final touch to the salad or some gravy that he has prepared. So he has brought in with him some biological hazard from the raw material, and he is now likely to contaminate the finished product. So if we see the various processes, if you can see in this slide, wherein you have raw material handling, processing aids, the air contamination, packaging, rework, shared equipments, cleaning processes, supply chain, storage, transport, any other cleaning and other stuff, they all have a potential to cross-contaminate. So when you are in a food processing operation, you got to be very careful about how these processes are actually being taken care of. For that matter, I'll give you a very simple example which has actually happened. It's a real example. We all heard about children dying after consuming the midday meal few years back. The main reason there was contamination due to cleaning aids. So what had happened there was, in the kitchen, the cleaning aids were kept next to the food itself, and by mistake, those cleaning aids got mixed with the dal. Nobody must have it intentionally, but it got mixed. So that's where the cross-contamination happened. That cleaning agent found its way into the dal, and unfortunately, it went into the children's stomach and caused the distress, and rest is history. We know that many kids they could not survive after consuming that dal. So the cross-contamination also happens to be a very, very focus area when you are in a food operation. So it's not only the contamination from one source, but you must also be aware of how else you may contaminate your products during your normal operations.
So the question, Miriam, there is one question here.
Yeah.
So that means cross contamination will lead to the food poisoning.
It could. I mean, if the contaminant has the potential to be a hazard.
Sure.
Yeah.
And it may be minor to major, basically. I mean,
exactly.
Right.
So, for example, in milk, okay, many times there is a bacteria, and that bacteria may end up forming a toxin. But if it is a heat labile toxin, though it has got formed in the milk, upon heating, it can also be denatured. And if it is a heat stable toxin, maybe that milk will not show the presence of microbes, because on heating, the microbes have got killed, but the toxin is still present, and it has got the ability to cause some distress in the stomach. So you may not have a full-fledged infection like typhoid or hepatitis or something, but you may end up having some diarrheal symptoms and nausea, which is a self-limiting one also. You may not need any treatment for that. Within maybe about 6 to 8 hours, you'll be fine again. So did I answer your question?
Yeah, madam. Thank you. Thank you so much.
1 second, madam.
Yeah.
I would like to add 2 points here.
Yeah, sure.
One is about the example about once we call it as a toxin, it is a chemical hazard. It goes into that.
Okay. Yeah.
So into the chemical hazards, there is one more which we have to add to the process, that is alkamides, acrylamides.
Yeah.
They are formed because of the frying.
Correct. In the
chemical portion.
Yes, repeated frying in the same oil.
Repeated frying in the same oil. So the oil is a culprit there.
Yeah.
So the food ends up and it again causes up. And toxins are most problematic issues. They cause death. Of course,
Yeah,
all chemicals are hazardous.
Hmm.
Only thing is, it is a limit at which we are able to sustain it. Otherwise, it will cause almost death.
Absolutely. Yes.
Coming out of that is really a very rare chance.
Correct.
I think
So
that's why. Sorry, sir. Sorry, please continue. Sorry.
Yeah. So in the milk,
Hmm.
if you store it at lower temperature for a long time, then psychrophiles have a tendency of forming toxins.
Hmm.
And these toxins will lead to death.
Essentially in ice creams.
Ice creams, there are other processes. So these such toxin forming microbes should not be present when we are treating it appropriately.
Correct.
So that is for the milk point of view from the biological when it comes to, but it ends up into a chemical hazard ultimately.
Absolutely. And, you know, we will find that most of us do not actually have reported infections out of consuming milk products, which are at lower temperatures, because the milk processing itself manages those hazards to a great extent.
Right. We have.
Yeah. So we have very strong processes. Like, for example, though we get pasteurized milk at home, we still prefer to boil it all over again. Hello?
Yeah, that is our habit. We are continuing to it.
Yes. So,
but
not needed, right? Probably not needed, right?
If post-pasteurization, 1 second.
Yeah.
If the post-pasteurization control in the dairy is perfect, we need not. But if we have a fear and other things, that is what is the risk we are thinking, then we do boil it. That is our habit, of course.
Yeah. The whole problem here is that we are not very confident about the supply chain. So there is a temperature abuse happening at every step. So that's one of the major concerns which does not allow us to be very confident about the milk that reaches our homes every morning.
Just two point, madam, I just want to ask you here.
Sure, please.
One is with respect to the point I think sir has already talked about. It's like fried oil.
Right.
So I believe a very easy test is available and is performed by the statutory bodies, wherein they check the toxin level with that test, right? Is it correct?
There are ways to check it. They check the free fatty acids, and there are number of ways in the industry. Okay, but when you're talking about anything at home, okay, the best thing is to not use that oil again and again.
Yeah, of course, madam.
Yeah.
I think at home normally we are not using, but mostly for outside food it is used. I mean, and that's why the food inspector check that part actually.
Correct, exactly. But then, of course, like, see, we are operating currently in a society where many food vendors, especially the street foods, they do not fall under the organized sector also. Okay, so the whole intention of this webinar series is that we start educating people around us about the sources of contamination, about many food safety aspects. So that way, probably we will make some difference in this strata.
Yeah.
Yeah. You were saying something?
Yeah. Thanks, madam. Second point is like about milk. Now we heard about this Tetra packing, right?
Right.
And which is also produced by Amul and many other companies. And it is claimed that you can store for a longer period of time unless you open it. Once you open it, then you need to consume it. But
then you need to refrigerate it immediately once you open it.
Yeah, right. So
and then consume it within the next 5 days.
Yeah. So that's in that case, it is a packaging which is helping like to control the bacterial presence and all.
Absolutely. It's the treatment, the ultra heat treatment that has happened, plus the packaging.
Okay.
Yeah?
Thank you. Thank you.
Right.
I will add one point here for Mr. Sankat Shah. I have worked in Tetra Pak for almost 6 years in operations of processing milk and packing. Well, it's not just packing, it's the process of packing also which is important.
Correct. Yes.
It is a milk is treated, the equipment and the whole line which is through which the milk passes and the packing machine completely is sterilized just like our syringe before you put anything into it. Then under such conditions only milk is transferred and packed. And the packing material is also prior sterilized with hydrogen peroxide and heat treated to evaporate the hydrogen peroxide. And in a sterile conditions only milk is filled into the and it is sealed. So there is no chemical added in this process as few people may think. It's only a process treatment, equipment sterilization, packing material sterilization, and packing in sterile conditions. That's why there is no bacteria now commercially. Commercially, 1 in million is acceptable in this case. So this makes the pack, as microbes are not there, so microbiological failures or spoilages won't be there, but on long standing, we may end up with some chemical changes. That may not be good to taste or other things. Right, carry on.
So the whole thing is that the contamination sources have been controlled here. Okay, if you really look at it, every source that could have contaminated the milk has been controlled.
Tetra Pak is very highly aged over the normal milk we are consuming with respect to the treatment which is given to it, right?
Definitely, definitely.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Okay, so can we move ahead? Yeah, anybody?
Yes, I just want to ask one more time.
Yeah.
That we consider the toxin produced by the microbes, we consider that toxin into the chemical contaminant or biological contaminants.
See, one thing you have to clearly understand that if there is a microbe present in the product, okay, then first of all, it is a biological hazard. And any toxin for that matter is a protein, okay? So now if you, even if, you have to be more worried about the treatment you will give to get rid of it, be it biological or chemical. So the treatment you give will be more important than identifying where you want to place it. So it is good to place it under the chemical hazard because your treatment would be actually more sophisticated. You may not end up doing only a thermal treatment. You may end up doing something more over there.
So then we should consider the toxin under the chemical contaminant.
Chemical hazard, but you will have to clearly specify how it has come in. Because toxin will not come into the product directly.
Madam, we are running short of
regarding aflatoxin, that can be considered under the chemical.
Yes. So of course, that's why there are limits already prescribed for aflatoxin, no?
And ma'am, regarding ice cream, sir has mentioned like over the period of time, some toxin is being generated. What type of that toxin is like? It can harm, like on at what duration it can start.
See, we are having further sessions are there.
Sure,
which will talk about all this, we will be talking them. Yeah.
Sure. Thank you.
Quickly, I will say, sir, the word toxin means poison. Keep that in mind. Okay. Now, these toxins are created by certain microorganisms and mostly the cyclophiles in milk. They create some toxins. And what toxin? See, if the process is good, that microbe is not there, then it won't be formed. So that's where the control is. So let's not worry about it right now. Detection and everything, there is another session in testings. We can go in there. At there, we can discuss certain testings if required.
Yeah. So can we move ahead? So this is just, I've made a small representation to just let you know from where your physical hazards could actually come into the product. So if you really look at, there's a very beautiful way of identifying from where your hazards can enter into the product. If you really see here, there are people, there are premises, there is the product, there's a packaging material, and then there's a plant. So everything around you is actually contributing to the hazard. So this is actually a very, very descriptive one where we tried to put every hazard that we could think of, so that you get a fair idea about there are so many physical hazards that could come into your product. Then coming to your microbial contamination sources, again the same thing. Just look around, you will find every one of them actually contributing to your food and making your food contaminated in some or the other way. So some of the basic stuff that we can always look at, which can be immediate contributors, could be your water. There could be the flow of people, how material is moving around, how your waste is being handled, then how your raw materials are kept, what is there in the cleaning and sanitizing system, whether your process is open, closed. These will all contribute to the microbial contaminants into the food. So these are, do you remember this? Any of you?
Three Idiots.
Yes, ma'am.
What is it contributing to?
Physical hazard.
The physical hazard is the hair. Okay.
Yes.
Right.
But if you remember the movie, there's a chemical hazard here.
Chemical hazard.
Yes,
What is
not
that
all
chemical?
sweat.
What is it? So, it's more important that we pick up examples from our life. Then it's easier to identify.
The eczema cream.
The eczema cream, that's the chemical hazard.
Can I ask a question here, please?
Yeah, sure, please.
As food industry people, we are always struggling with this hair contamination.
Correct.
Now, the way we are discussing today, I just want to understand, how do you discuss about this as a hazard or a risk?
So we have a session on this, on the risk controls. So we can discuss this. If like your point is taken, we will.
No, my actually point was, is it right to consider hair as hazard?
Okay, can I ask you something?
Please.
Why not?
See, if it is present in a food, other than the unhygienic part, as in the consumer while consuming may feel offended, it perhaps doesn't really cause any choking or blocking or any ailment, so to speak.
If you have this, hair can actually cause an intestinal distress.
That's where the risk assessment will come.
No, I mean, it has got an ability to cause an injury or illness. Well, the quantity is yet to be defined. We have not spoken about the quantity. But definitely the hair, when it is ingested, it has got a ability to cause a distress in the intestine. Maybe not immediately, but over a period.
I think it will be unfair to hijack the wonderful presentation going by a debate on this, but
no, but it is worth thinking about, and I think we have a session on risk control. In that, we'll include this as well. Let us really talk about this, because I mean, at one point of time, even I had the opinion why hair should be considered as a hazard. But then I talked about this, and there were a number of case studies which talked about this.
Surely we'll come to that.
Yeah, we'll come to that. Okay, and thank
you
you for bringing it out. Okay,
thanks.
It will actually contribute to a number of us.
Thanks.
Madam, sorry to interrupt. We have 3 more minutes for this
Hello?
session to go. Sorry, madam.
Yeah, sure. We'll finish immediately.
Yeah, it's time up. Yeah.
No worries. Completely okay. Yeah. So these are some of the other contributors, and we are all aware. In fact, these are our everyday life contributors who can contribute to the hazards in the food. So the whole thing, we want to end the session with is that most of the hazards that you saw, they can be effectively controlled by we being vigilant, we being, very mindful about what is happening around us, and addressing the source of their origin. So with that, we can actually reduce the ingress of these hazards into the food. And to some extent also ensure that our food is safe for consuming by us as well as by our customers and consumers. So any questions from your end? Anything anybody would like to share?
I think, madam, this is a very interesting subject and topic actually, considering even the present scenario also.
Yeah.
Right, where I mean, we are now doubting each and everything basically, like which is coming inside our home, or maybe we are purchasing from the outside. I mean, for essential items, even all those items. I mean, more interesting will be that how we can check maybe, I mean, at home, or very simple way of checking kind of contamination or adulteration kind of things. I think that will be very interesting to know actually from my side.
So for adulteration, there are kits available, which, is being shared very extensively. As far as contamination is concerned, you have to be mindful. There is, at a home level, it's difficult to check the contamination.
Yeah, yes, yeah, that's correct.
Of your actions.
That's correct. That's correct. Yeah, right.
I will add one point here, Mr. Sankar.
Yeah.
Sure.
FSSAI has brought out one adulterant book called DART. You can search it on the website and download it for household activities.
Sure. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Okay. Any questions that need to be answered? Sir, you were going through the comments. Anything that we need to address?
There were a few. I will read out that.
Yeah.
One talks about saying that these toxins can be called as biochemical hazards. Can we do that?
Going by the international way in which hazards have been described, biochemical hazards, at least I have not come across. I think it's a good point to look up for.
Well, I will answer this a little more, adding to what you are saying. As you said, internationally, in the food safety, all hazards are classified into 3 only.
Correct.
Based on the effect on human body.
Exactly.
So if that chemical, it is not the point of source, it is ultimate effect on human body.
Correct.
If it is affecting chemically, then it is called chemical hazard. If it is affecting physically, then it is called physical hazard. And if the bacteria is there in the body and then affecting you, then only it is biological, otherwise it's not. So we have to stick to these 3 hazards. Sources, of course, we should identify so that we can have a better control on that. There was one more point saying that TPC count of fried oil normally is recommended is below 25. Now I need to understand that.
TPC?
Yeah. That's what I want to understand. What is the
I would like to know
question in your
what is it?
What is your question in your mind? Let me understand that first. I do not know who posed this question. I didn't get that when I was copying it into my sheet. The names are not coming, only the comments are coming. Whoever it is, well, I will explain. Please understand, oil, I don't understand which microbe will survive.
Correct.
And that too, fried oil. Oil go to more than 100 degrees, then only your food is fried. So microbes won't be there. And moreover, when you get hurt, you apply oil on it. Why? Because it cuts the oxygen and thereby it restricts the growth of microbes. So oil will very few, which is called lipolytic microbes. Only they are there and they are very few in number.
And they do not have the ability to cause
they
any
do not have,
infection.
They won't cause any infection. Or any. So oil won't cause biological hazard. It's more about the chemical, which is toxins or else free fatty acids, which affect you chemically. Right?
Here, I would just like to add, oils have been actually used as preservatives.
Certainly.
Your pickle is preserved in oil.
That kills some microbes.
Yeah, that kills some. That provides an anaerobiosis, so there is no oxygen.
Yes.
Actually, this is, madam, this is Google Baba is saying this is called total polar compounds.
Okay. So please say that.
TPC, otherwise when we go into a different account.
It is
We have
total
a
plate
typical,
count.
yes, yes.
It is say the estimation of TPC is a widely accepted parameter to decide.
I will explain that. I will
Correct.
explain that.
Correct. Yeah.
I will explain that.
Yes.
See, polarity is actually, you see what they do is there is a prism activity on which the oil is kept and then the readings are taken. So it is the density of the oil which is seen through the refractometer. That's what is a typical basic refractometer, into which we put this oil and then you get the reading. How much of the turbidity is there? If the turbidity is more, means it has been overheated number of times. So the oil has to be discarded. So for that, the count is, this might have been fixed into it. Okay, friend? Hello?
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Madam, we are running out of time. Sorry.
Yes,
Yeah,
I think,
Yeah.
Are there any more questions?
Other questions, we'll post it to your mail ID or share it so that we can reply to them through the mail ID. Madam. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you so much. And I think you need to make an announcement.
Yeah. There is an announcement there.
Yeah, please.
This webinar series started today and it will be there for the coming next 29 days. Including today, it will be 30 days. So a month-long webinar series are there, and the topics are there in our website as well as the blog. And I request every one of the participants who have participated today to share this particular information about the webinars to your own known circles as well as your friends, so that the participation is full. So once again, I thank Krishna Datta Madam and Appaji Rao Sir for giving a wonderful presentation about the various hazards and the risk associated with it, and hope everybody enjoyed the session. And on behalf of CCC, I thank every one of you for sparing your time for participating in this webinar, first webinar of this on the auspices of the World Accreditation Day celebrations. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. It was really nice interacting with all of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Stay safe, stay home.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
We'll catch up again tomorrow evening.
Yeah, thank
Okay.
you.
Okay.